Thanks, Anik. So my name is Parveen. I'm a neurologist and epileptologist. I work primarily at the Alfred, and I'm also about to be a postdoctorate at Monash University. So I work across Monash and the Alfred, essentially. And I guess my research interest is epilepsy surgery, and specifically within that field, stereotactic EEG. First, I guess it's first worth mentioning that epilepsy is a very common neurological disorder. In Australia alone, 150,000 people live with active epilepsy, which means they have ongoing predisposition to have seizures. And it can, in many people, be a highly disabling condition. It can affect all aspects of life. So, in sort of practical terms, all epilepsy is, it's a predisposition of a brain to generate epileptic seizures, which sort of begs the question, what is an epileptic seizure? Which in practical terms, again, is just a collection of signs or symptoms that a patient may experience due to abnormal or excessive synchronization of brain cells. So essentially, it's a disorder of over-synchronization of brain circuits that leads to abnormal behavior or brain function. There's multiple types of epilepsy. There's focal epilepsy and generalized epilepsy. So in focal epilepsy, seizures arise from a particular part of the brain. And that's, in a way, it can be quite fortunate because we have the opportunity to potentially remove that part of the brain, and that can actually lead to seizure freedom for many people who live with epilepsy, are highly disabled by it. So that process is called epilepsy surgery, which we try, if people don't respond to medications, we try and see everyone who lives with epilepsy if we can give them epilepsy surgery and really improve their life. While epilepsy surgery is highly effective, it can actually lead to expected costs and complications. So, for example, Anik, 30% of people who have temporal lobe surgery for the most common type of epilepsy, which is temporal lobe epilepsy, 30% of people will have language dysfunction afterwards. So their ability to communicate and understand will be impacted in some way. And of course, that's highly meaningful for people. And sometimes for people, it actually prevents them from proceeding. It prevents the clinicians from suggesting that treatment pathway. So that's really what the research is motivated by, is making epilepsy surgery safer for people, specifically in the language context, by reducing the possibility of people of having language dysfunction after epilepsy surgery. At the moment, clinicians use this technique called electrical stimulation mapping to figure out to map which parts of the brain are involved in language function. And this technique is done using another technique called stereotactic EEG, in which we can place electrodes inside people's brains in order to better understand their epilepsy, to better understand their language function. So what we're proposing is so electrical stimulation mapping, first of all, fantastic. But despite this, people have language deficits, despite our best efforts. So we're developing a different technique called high frequency activation mapping, which we are currently able to test in people, and then we can compare against the current gold standard, which is electrical stimulation, to see if it performs just as well. The great thing about high frequency activation mapping for language is that it deals with a lot of the problems that currently exist with electrical stimulation mapping that may actually lead to language dysfunction after epilepsy surgery. The research is, almost all of it is motivated by a clinical desire to help our patients who live with epilepsy every day. And it's really my personal hope, it's my team's hope that using this novel technique to better understand people's language networks, that will be able to offer them epilepsy surgery that is safer and also more effective in terms of being able to cure their or render them seizure free after epilepsy surgery. So I'm hoping that using novel techniques in the future, we will see that a lot more people undergo epilepsy surgery and then report after epilepsy surgery that their language function is not impacted, that their other cognitive capacities like memory are also not impacted either.